Word on campus was that the golden boy of the pre-law program had a very strict moral code. Whenever a girl confessed her feelings and gave him a gift, he would reject her flat out. But to keep his conscience clear, he would always pay her back for whatever the gift cost. As a broke college student surviving on instant noodles, desperation bred a wicked idea in my head. I bought a beaded bracelet off a street vendor for $2. I blocked his path and put on my most soulful gaze. I have a massive crush on you. Do you want to go out with me? Oh, and I bought you this bracelet. The golden boy looked at me.
No.
How much was the bracelet? I'll transfer you the money.
Me?
$780.50, golden boy. While I was staring miserably at the glaring deficit on my tuition bill, my roommate was hanging off her loft bed, eagerly spilling the latest campus gossip. Did you guys hear Weston from the law school rejected another girl yesterday?
Oh, I heard about that.
She gave him an engraved fountain pen. He pulled out his phone and then mailed her $100 on the spot. He said he doesn't accept gifts, but he pays for what he's given. The guy has principles. I shot up from my mattress like a rocket. Wait, seriously? He reimburses the original price of the confession gifts?
Yep.
It's his golden rule. He doesn't take advantage of anyone. A rejection is a rejection. But he refuses to owe anyone a favor. I thought about the pathetic $27 sitting in my bank account. Then I glanced back at the 4-digit nightmare on my tuition portal. Poverty really does awaken the criminal mastermind in you. A brilliant, flawless scheme instantly formed in my brain. For the next 2 days, I memorized Weston's class schedule and the routes he usually walked on campus. Then I stopped by a local flea market stall, just off campus, to pick out a bracelet. How much for this string of beads? $50. Are you out of your mind? I'll give you $2.
Deal.
Don't worry, sweetheart, the vendor grinned. This bracelet is blessed for romance. Whoever you give it to will definitely fall in love with you. I didn't care about the romance. I just needed it to bless my tuition fund. Everything was set. At 4:30 on a Wednesday afternoon, right outside the law building, I perfectly ambushed Weston just as he walked out of his seminar. He looked even better in person than he did in the rumors, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. Looked like he was walking around with his own personal spotlight. I swallowed hard, took a massive step forward and planted myself right in his way. I shoved the bracelet toward him. Weston, I have a massive crush on you. Do you want to go out with me? This is a bracelet I bought just for you. Weston stopped in his tracks. He didn't even blink.
No.
My heart leaped into my throat. I was just waiting for those magic words. How much was the gift? I'll transfer you the money.
Bingo.
Without batting an eyelash, I recited the exact number I had calculated beforehand. $780.50. Weston stared at the flimsy string of beads that looked like it was going to snap if the wind blew too hard. A look of pure disbelief crossed his face. This thing is nearly $800. But is this some new form of daylight robbery? My cheeks burned, but I bit the bullet and spouted absolute nonsense with a straight face. I took this bracelet to a spiritual guru to get it specially blessed. He said our auras are perfectly aligned, and this will ward off toxic relationships for 3 years. You get what you pay for. A low chuckle escaped his lips. His eyes rippled with amusement, bright and clear, like sunlight hitting the water. The corner of his mouth curved up. He was so ridiculously handsome that my conscience almost woke up and forced me to confess the scam. But my sheer poverty kept me completely blind to guilt. You're an interesting one, he tilted his chin. Show me your Venmo QR code. My eyes lit up like fireworks. I whipped out my phone, pulled up the code, and shoved the screen toward him. I moved so fast, terrified he might change his mind. A soft chime rang out from my phone. You have received $800. My internal organs practically threw a parade. You sent $20 too much. I tried my best to keep my face neutral.
Keep the change.
I hate typing decimals. He shoved his hands into his pockets and walked past me without a second glance. I spun around and yelled at his retreating back, my voice dripping with the most genuine gratitude I had ever felt in my life. Thank you, boss. May you graduate with a 4.0. May you drown in scholarship offers. May all your toxic exes stay away. May you win every bet you ever make. His footsteps paused for a fraction of a second. He didn't turn around, just lazily raised a hand in acknowledgement. Enough. He left me with the view of a very cool, very generous back. I stood there clutching my phone, almost crying tears of joy, looking at my bank balance, which now perfectly covered my tuition. With a few bucks to spare, I let out a long, heavy sigh of relief. But that peace only lasted about 12 hours. A text from my mom completely shattered my reality. She transferred me $40. Attached was a message. Be careful with your spending this month. Your sister needs a new laptop for school, so money is a bit tight. I stared at the $40 in total silence. Last month she gave me $400. This month it was slashed to 10%. How was I supposed to survive a whole month on $40? The wicked idea started bubbling up again. I had already done it once. What was stopping me from doing it again? Dying of embarrassment was temporary. Dying of starvation was permanent. This time I was going to be way more prepared. I stayed up for 3 hours reading a thread called 10,000 Lines to Melt a Guy's Heart. I filled half a notebook with cheesy romantic lines and memorized them until I could recite them backward. The next day after class, I clutched my textbook and sprinted toward the law building, terrified I'd miss him. But the second I actually saw him, my brain turned to absolute mush. I spotted him standing outside the building talking to his buddy. I quickly smoothed down my shirt, took a deep breath, and marched over. I shoved a cheap, goofy capybara plush keychain right into his face and opened my mouth. Weston, You are the light of my bank account. Wait, no. You are the light of my life. The moment the words left my mouth, my entire body went rigid. It was over. I completely fumbled the script. The air went dead silent for 2 agonizing seconds. He raised an eyebrow, his eyes swimming with pure mockery. The light of your bank account? My face burned hot enough to fry an egg. I scrambled to fix it, my words tumbling out in a panicked rush. No, I meant you. You're like a light illuminating my life. My life, not my bank account. The more I panicked, the worse it got. The romantic lines I had spent all night memorizing violently collided in my head. My love for you is like a freight train completely off the rails. It's like the pizza at the dining hall. Cheap but full of substance. Wait, no. His friend totally lost it. He doubled over, clutching his stomach, laughing so hard he practically collapsed onto the pavement. I'm dying, Weston. Where did you find this comedian? Even Weston's lips twitched upward into a genuine smile. I wanted the concrete to open up and swallow me whole. I dropped my head, my voice shrinking down to a pathetic whisper. Sorry, I just got a little nervous. This was humiliating. Weston tapped the capybara keychain I was still holding up in the air. Did your spiritual guru bless this one too? How much? No guru. This time it's just 150. He took the goofy little capybara from my hand, turning it over in his fingers. He glanced from the plushie to my face. This little thing kind of looks like you. He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen a few times. A second later, the beautiful notification chime rang out. $200. I looked up at him, my eyes wide and confused. The extra, he raised an eyebrow, a teasing glint in his dark eyes, is the admission fee for that comedy routine. I clutched my phone, staring at the fresh $200 in my account. Suddenly, the humiliation completely evaporated. If embarrassing myself paid this well, I would happily do it every day of the week. His friend threw an arm around Weston's shoulder and grinned at me. We got a basketball game tomorrow at 3. Make sure you come cheer for our boy. Don't forget to bring him some water. I gave an awkward laugh, but after his friend practically demanded I show up, I finally nodded. The next day, I arrived at the campus basketball courts right on time. It was packed. I had to stand all the way in the back, clutching a bottle of ice-cold sports drink, feeling a weird knot of anxiety in my stomach. The second Weston stepped onto the court, the screaming from the bleachers almost blew the roof off. He was wearing a royal blue and white jersey. His dark hair was slightly damp, sweeping just above his brow bone. During warm-ups, his shirt lifted just enough to expose a sliver of a lean, heavily muscled waist. I couldn't look away. I literally counted 8 distinct abs. I silently concluded that looking at him was basically a meal in itself. The whistle blew when Weston was focused. He was ridiculously attractive. His movements were fluid and lethal, dribbling, crossing over, jumping, shooting. He sank 3-pointers effortlessly, one after another. Every time the ball swished through the net, the crowd absolutely lost their minds. The energy was contagious. Before I knew it, I was screaming his name with the rest of them. This guy was literally paying for my survival. He was my greatest benefactor. By the end of the first half, I was shouting with so much passion that my throat felt like sandpaper. The halftime buzzer echoed through the gym. I clutched the icy bottle to my chest and carefully squeezed my way through the packed crowd toward the benches, terrified the drink would get warm before I could hand it to him. Just as I broke through to the front row, a heavy hand clamped down on my arm. It was a guy in a stained muscle shirt. He looked like absolute trash. His eyes slowly dragged up and down my body, a greasy, uncomfortable smirk plastered on his face. Pushing your way to the front, sweetie. You here throwing yourself at Weston too? I frowned, trying to yank my arm back, but his grip was like a vice. Let go of me. Don't be in such a rush. 2 of his equally gross friends stepped up, boxing me in from both sides. Stop dreaming, little girl. Weston's standards are sky high. He's not gonna look twice at a thing like you. Why don't you hang out with our boy, Trent, instead? He knows how to treat a girl right. The buddies snickered. And looks so soft, Trent sneered, his hand reaching out toward my face. I wonder if the rest of you is just as... He never finished that sentence. A long, heavily veined arm shot out from my blind spot. A large hand clamped down over Trent's wrist, violently twisting it backward. A sickening pop sounded, followed by a blood-curdling scream. Trent was yanked halfway around by sheer brutal force. Before he could even regain his balance, a heavy sneaker slammed into the back of his knee, forcing him to instantly drop to the floor in agony. The entire section of the bleachers went dead silent. I looked up and crashed straight into a pair of icy, lethal eyes. Weston. He had just stepped off the court. He hadn't even grabbed a towel yet. Sweat trailed down his sharp jawline, and the muscles in his forearms were tight and completely flushed with adrenaline. What did you just say? Repeat it. His voice was like shattered glass. A raw, terrifying violence burned in his eyes, making him look like a completely different person from the aloof golden boy I knew. All the color drained from Trent's face. Weston, hey man. I was just joking. Watch your fucking mouth. Weston released his wrist and gave him a casual shove. Trent collapsed onto his backside, scrambling away like a rat. Weston shifted his gaze to the 2 friends, whose faces were now sickly pale. His tone was as casual as discussing the weather. If I ever see any of you near her again, a kicked knee will be the least of your problems. Apologize to her. Trent clenched his jaw, staying silent. Weston took a slow half step forward. I'm sorry, Trent screamed, his voice completely cracking in terror. I'm sorry. I was being a piece of shit. It'll never happen again. The 2 buddies tripped over their words trying to apologize, looking more pathetic by the second.
Get lost.
The guys nodded frantically, hauled Trent to his feet, and shoved their way blindly through the crowd to escape. Weston didn't even watch them leave. He slowly turned his head and looked down at me. The terrifying, murderous look in his eyes faded, replaced by something dark and unreadable. Are you okay? I stood completely frozen, my fingers gripping the plastic bottle so hard it crinkled. I still hadn't fully processed the chaos. Weston reached over, grabbed a clean towel from the bench, and slowly wiped down his fingers, acting as if he had just touched something deeply contaminated. Why are you just standing there? Give me the water. Snapped out of it, I hurriedly handed him the bottle. Thank you for helping me. It's still ice cold. Drink it slowly, so you don't hurt your throat. He paused right as he unscrewed the cap. He lowered his eyes to look at me, a lazy, amused smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. You're surprisingly attentive. I didn't think anything of it. I just nodded sincerely.
Of course I am.
You're literally funding my college degree. You are. My God. I watched his profile as he tilted his head back to drink, his Adam's apple bobbing sharply with every swallow. My ears suddenly felt uncomfortably hot. I quickly snapped my gaze to the floor. Weston let out a soft laugh, pulled his phone from his gym bag, and tapped the screen. The beautiful, angelic notification sound chimed from my pocket. You have received $300. My eyes went wide. I stared at him in shock.
Why?
Why did you send me money? The water was a gift. It was free. He leaned down. He got so close that there was barely an inch of space between our faces. His clean, crisp scent wrapped around me, and for one impossible second, the deafening gym seemed to disappear. Weston's dark eyes searched mine. I didn't pay you for the water. My heartbeat stumbled. Then what? He straightened, slipping his phone back into his gym bag. I paid you because you looked scared. Huh. I don't like owing people. His gaze drifted toward the exit where Trent had disappeared. And I especially don't like people getting dragged into trouble because of me. I blinked. So, this is compensation? You can call it hazard pay. I stared at the $300 notification. Was there reimbursement category for emotional damages? His teammate jogged over, towel draped around his neck. Weston. He looked between us before letting out a low whistle. Dude. What? You've never defended a confession girl before. Weston didn't answer. The teammate looked at me. Do you know how many people confess to him every semester? I slowly shook my head.
No.
Over 50. 50? He's rejected every single one. He jabbed a thumb toward Weston. But this is the first time he's nearly broken somebody's kneecap over one. Weston shot him a warning glance. Shut up. I'm serious, his friend laughed. Last year some girl cried for an hour after getting rejected. You walked right past her. Different situation.
How?
Weston looked at me for half a second before calmly replying. She wasn't being harassed. His friend narrowed his eyes. Right. The tone made me feel like I was missing something. Before I could ask, the halftime buzzer ended. The coach barked from across the court. Weston, back in. He tossed the empty bottle into the recycling bin. Stay in the stands. Okay. And don't wander off alone. Okay. If anyone bothers you, I'll tell security. His expression softened just a fraction. Good. Then, he jogged back onto the court. The second half was even crazier. Maybe it was because of what had happened earlier. Maybe it was because I couldn't stop watching him. Every steal. Every assist. Every impossible three-pointer. By the final buzzer, Weston had scored 38 points. The entire gym erupted. Students rushed toward the court, hoping for photos. Girls surrounded him almost immediately. I looked down at the empty sports bottle in my hands. Well, mission accomplished. I delivered the water. There was no reason to stay. I quietly slipped out through the side exit. I had barely made it halfway across campus when someone called my name. Hey. I turned around. Weston. He had changed into a black hoodie, his damp hair still slightly messy from the shower. He walked over, slightly out of breath. You left. I didn't want to bother you. You disappeared. There were like 100 people around you. I noticed. He held out a paper bag. For you. I hesitated. Another reimbursement?
No.
I carefully accepted it. Inside was a warm cheeseburger, a carton of fries, a chocolate milkshake, and 2 chocolate chip cookies. My stomach chose that exact moment to betray me. It growled. Loudly. Weston looked down. So you skipped lunch. And breakfast. Dinner too? I was budgeting. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You've been living on instant noodles. Sometimes I upgrade to eggs. How often? You don't want to answer. I lowered my head.
He sighed. Sit.
There was a bench nearby beneath a huge maple tree. I obediently sat down. He handed me the burger.
Eat.
I can take it back to my dorm. It'll get cold. I unwrapped it. The smell alone almost made me cry. I hadn't eaten real fast food in months. I took one bite, then another. Without realizing it, I completely forgot Weston was sitting beside me. I devoured half the burger in under 2 minutes. Only when I reached for the fries did I freeze. Oh no. What? I slowly looked at him. I forgot to act ladylike. He stared at me, then laughed. Not the polite little chuckle from before. A genuine laugh. I've never seen someone inhale a cheeseburger before. I was hungry, I can tell. My face turned bright red. I'm sorry. For what? I probably looked like a starving raccoon. You did. But. He looked away, smiling faintly. It was cute. My brain stopped functioning. What? I said nothing. No, you definitely. His phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the screen. His expression immediately became colder. I have to take this. He stood up and walked several steps away. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the person on the other end was shouting loudly enough that I could hear bits and pieces. You're embarrassing the family, dating some gold digger. Father wants you home. Weston's voice turned icy. She isn't a gold digger. A pause. No. I gave her the money. Another pause. My decision. His expression darkened. You don't get to decide who I spend my money on.
Click.
He ended the call. When he turned back around, his usual calm expression had already returned. Sorry. Everything okay? He nodded once. Family. Oh. He looked at the nearly empty bag. You finished everything. Even the fries. I noticed. Sorry. Don't apologize for eating. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I remembered something. Weston. I've confessed to you 3 times now. And you've rejected me every single time. I have. Doesn't that get annoying? He looked directly into my eyes. It would. I blinked. Would. If you actually meant it. My heart skipped. What do you mean? A slow smile appeared on his face. I've been waiting. Waiting. For the day you confess without bringing a price tag. I froze. The evening breeze rustled through the maple leaves, but all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. What? Weston leaned casually against the bench, hands in the pockets of his hoodie. The first confession came with a bracelet worth exactly the amount of your tuition. I stared. The second one came with a capybara keychain right after your monthly allowance got cut. And today's sports drink. He tilted his head. That one was free. My face slowly drained of color. So, he continued. I have a question. I wanted to run. What is it? How much money do you actually need? Silence. A long, painful silence. My shoulders slumped. I am the worst person on earth. You didn't answer. I squeezed my eyes shut. I never had a crush on you. I know. I only confessed because I heard you'd reimburse people. I know. I lied about the bracelet. I know. The spiritual guru doesn't exist. I figured. The bracelet cost $2. I guessed. The capybara keychain was from the campus gift shop. I recognized the price tag you forgot to peel off. My jaw dropped. You what? The sticker was still on the bottom. I wanted the earth to split open and bury me alive. So, he folded his arms. Anything else? I covered my face with both hands. I'm a shameless scammer. You are. I should probably return all your money. You can't. Why not? You already paid your tuition. I hate how observant you are. A laugh escaped him. I've known since the first day. I peeked at him through my fingers. Then, why did you still transfer the money? He answered without hesitation. Because you never asked for it after I rejected you.
What?
You confessed. I rejected you. I offered reimbursement. You accepted exactly what I voluntarily sent. He shrugged. That's my rule. But I lied. You lied about the bracelet. You didn't lie about needing money. My throat tightened. He continued quietly. The day after I transferred the tuition money, you were sitting outside the financial aid office. You were crying. I stared at him. You saw that. I did. You looked relieved. I figured your problem had been solved. It was. But then a week later. He looked almost amused. You came back with another confession. I realized your tuition wasn't the only thing you couldn't afford.
I didn't know what to say.
He had noticed. Everything. I asked around. My eyes widened. You what? I didn't investigate your private life. I only asked your advisor if you were okay. He said you've been working 2 part-time jobs. My ears burned. He also mentioned you turned down a meal plan because you couldn't afford it. I looked away. I didn't want people feeling sorry for me. I don't. His answer came immediately. I respect you. I laughed bitterly. You respect a girl who keeps trying to scam you? You've never stolen. I practically did. You gave me something every time. It was junk. It was yours. You never threatened me. You never manipulated me. You never demanded anything. You simply relied on the fact that I keep my own promises. I blinked. I decided that if my principles happened to help someone stay in school, I wasn't going to complain. My eyes suddenly felt hot. My voice cracked. You're way too nice. He smiled faintly. I'm really not. You literally paid nearly $1,300 because I embarrassed myself 3 times. 1,298. You counted. I study law. Right. He looked at me for a long moment. So. Now that we've established you don't actually like me, I nodded miserably. Can we stop pretending? Relief washed over me. Absolutely. No more fake confessions.
Deal.
No more overpriced gifts.
Deal.
No more imaginary spiritual gurus. He'll be heartbroken. He chuckled. Then he extended his hand. Let's start over. I looked at it.
How?
I'm Weston. I'd like to be your friend. For some reason, that simple sentence hit me harder than any confession ever could. Slowly, I reached out and shook his hand. I'm Emily. I know. You know my name? You've confessed to me 3 times. Fair point. He smiled. Emily. Yeah. Next time you need help. He looked me straight in the eye. Try asking. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. No one had ever said those words to me before. Not without making me feel like a burden. Weston simply smiled, as if asking for help was the most ordinary thing in the world. And for the first time, since meeting him, I felt guilty not because I'd been caught, but because I suddenly wished my first confession had been real. For the next week, I avoided Weston like he was a final exam I hadn't studied for. If I saw him walking across campus, I'd immediately turn around. If he entered the library, I'd suddenly remember I needed coffee. If someone mentioned the law building, I'd find an excuse to take the long route. My roommate eventually cornered me. She narrowed her eyes. What did you do? I don't know what you're talking about. You've been acting like you're hiding a body. You confessed again, didn't you? Maybe. She gasped. Did he reject you? Worse. Worse. He knew. He knew what? He knew everything. She blinked. Everything? The bracelet. The fake guru. The capybara. The tuition. The allowance. She stared at me for a solid 10 seconds. And you're still alive? Apparently. What did he do? He bought me a cheeseburger. My roommate slowly sat down. I'm sorry. I think I missed several chapters. Before I could explain, my phone buzzed. Weston, outside your dorm. Come down. I nearly dropped my phone. He's what? My roommate snatched the phone out of my hands. Her eyes nearly popped out of her head. Emily. What? Weston Hale. What about him?
Is.
What? Outside. She grabbed my shoulders. The Weston Hale is waiting outside our dorm. I can read. Then why are you standing here? Because I'm terrified. 5 minutes later, after my roommate practically shoved me out the front door, I found Weston standing beneath a large oak tree. He was wearing jeans and a navy sweater today. Students walking by kept stealing glances at him. Then at me. Then back at him. It felt surreal. You came, he said. You texted. I wasn't sure you'd answer. I almost didn't. I figured. He held up a paper bag. Breakfast. Again? You skipped it. How do you know? I saw you leave your dorm with only coffee. I looked at the bag. Inside was a breakfast sandwich, fresh fruit, orange juice, and a cinnamon roll. You looked at one in the cafe yesterday. I slowly looked up. You've been observing me. I have. That's a little creepy. It is. But you also haven't been answering my messages. You sent 3. I sent 4. I checked my phone. There really were 4. I accidentally muted you. His lips twitched. Convenient. I sighed. I'm sorry. He shook his head. Eat first. You really like feeding people. I like feeding one person. My face warmed. To distract myself, I hurriedly opened the sandwich. Halfway through breakfast, curiosity finally got the better of me. Can I ask you something? You just did. Can I ask another? He nodded. You said you've rejected every confession you've ever gotten. I have. So, I hesitated. Why haven't you blocked me? He looked genuinely confused. Why would I? I tried to scam you. You failed. I embarrassed myself repeatedly. You entertained me. I cost you almost $1,300. You helped me spend money. I was going to donate anyway. I blinked. Donate. My scholarship covers everything. He shrugged. My parents also insist on giving me spending money. I don't need most of it. So, every semester, I donate what's left. He looked at me calmly. You simply received part of this semester's donation. I stared at him. So I wasn't. No. You weren't running my finances. Something in my chest loosened. I've actually been wondering something too. What? He rested his elbows on the table. If you were really trying to scam me, why did you only come back twice? Huh. You could have confessed every day. I scratched my cheek awkwardly. Because I have shame.
For a second, he simply looked at me.
Then he burst into laughter. Not a polite laugh. Not even a quiet one. A full, helpless laugh that made several nearby students turn around in surprise. I believe that's the funniest thing you've ever said. I was serious. I know. That's what makes it funny. I pouted. You laugh a lot more than people think. Only around you. My heart skipped. Before I could recover, someone called out from across the courtyard. Weston, a tall, elegant woman in a cream-colored suit walked toward us. She looked to be in her late 20s. Confident. Beautiful. The moment she saw me, she smiled knowingly. So, she looked between us. This must be the famous girl. Weston frowned. What famous girl? The one Grandma keeps asking about. Grandma? She laughed. Oh, she loves the story. My eyes widened. Story? The bracelet. Weston closed his eyes. You told Grandma? I made one phone call. And she told the entire family. The woman grinned at me. Our grandmother thinks it's incredibly romantic. I nearly choked on my orange juice. Romantic, she says. Any girl bold enough to charge $800 for a fake confession has enough courage to survive in this family. Weston rubbed his forehead. I've been trying to convince her it wasn't romantic. And has that worked? No. His sister smiled mischievously. It got even worse after you defended her at the basketball game. My eyes darted between them. Wait, your whole family knows who I am? Weston and his sister exchanged a glance. Then, with perfect synchronization, they both sighed. His sister smiled apologetically. Unfortunately, I covered my face. I need to transfer schools. No, you don't, Weston said. Your grandmother thinks I'm a con artist. Actually, his sister coughed into her fist. She thinks you're hilarious. That doesn't help. It gets worse. How? My father thinks you're after the family money. I immediately shot to my feet. Their IS family money? The words escaped before my brain could stop them. Silence. Weston's sister stared. Weston stared. I stared back at them in horror. Forget I said that. His sister burst into uncontrollable laughter. Oh my God. She leaned against Weston to keep from falling over. I finally understand why Grandma likes you so much. Weston pinched the bridge of his nose. Emily. I'm sorry. You really don't have an internal filter. I do. You absolutely don't. I sat back down and buried my face in my hands. I've never been so embarrassed in my life. You've said that at least 4 times, Weston pointed out. This week. Fair. His sister finally caught her breath. I'm Claire, by the way. She held out her hand. I shook it. Emily. I know. Of course you do. Claire smiled warmly. Don't worry too much about my family. I feel like I should. My grandmother adores you. My mother is curious. My father is suspicious. And Weston, she deliberately paused, has been talking about you far more than he'd ever admit. Weston looked up sharply. Claire. What? I haven't. You called me 3 times after the basketball game. Because you wouldn't stop making assumptions. You literally asked me what kind of dessert she likes. You asked whether she drinks coffee. And whether she prefers cats or dogs. I slowly turned toward Weston. You did. He cleared his throat. He seemed to search desperately for an excuse. Making conversation. Claire snorted.
Sure.
I was. You've known me for 26 years. She folded her arms. You've never once called to ask what dessert another girl likes. Weston fell silent. Claire smiled victoriously. I rest my case. She glanced at her watch. I've got a meeting. Before leaving, she leaned close to me. In case my idiot brother hasn't realized it yet, she lowered her voice. He only notices one person skipping meals. Then she patted Weston's shoulder. Figure it out before someone else does. With that, she walked away, still smiling to herself. The moment she disappeared around the corner, an awkward silence settled between us. I poked at the wrapper for my breakfast sandwich. So, do you really ask people what desserts I like? Weston looked out across the courtyard. Sometimes, when they're my sister. I couldn't help smiling. I like strawberry shortcake. I know. You know? You stopped in front of the bakery window 3 times last week. You counted. I noticed things. I've noticed. Another silence. This one wasn't uncomfortable, just quiet. Students hurried past us on their way to morning classes. Some recognized Weston. A few whispered when they saw us sitting together. One girl openly frowned. As she passed, I heard her mutter to her friend, I don't get it. She's completely ordinary. Her friend nodded. I heard, she confessed to him 4 times. 3, I muttered automatically. Weston heard. So you're keeping score? It matters. It does? I refused to be accused of a 4th fake confession. The corner of his mouth lifted. Good. Because I'd reject that one too. I blinked. You would? I don't accept fake confessions. Oh, for some reason, that answer made my chest feel unexpectedly heavy. I forced a smile. Don't worry. There won't be a 4th. He studied my face for a long moment. Then he quietly asked, what if it wasn't fake? I froze. He wasn't smiling anymore. His expression was calm, but his eyes were completely serious. If one day, he said slowly, you confessed because you actually liked me. He held my gaze. My answer wouldn't necessarily be the same. My heart slammed so hard against my ribs that I was certain he could hear it. What? Weston stood, adjusting the strap of his backpack over one shoulder. I have class. Wait. He smiled, just enough to throw me completely off balance. Think about it. Then he walked away, leaving me sitting on the bench with my untouched orange juice and a heart that had suddenly become very, very confused. For the first time since this ridiculous scheme had begun, the thought crept into my mind. What if my next confession wasn't for the money? The next 2 months flew by. Somewhere between shared breakfasts, late-night library sessions, and Weston quietly making sure I actually ate 3 meals a day, our fake relationship somehow turned into a very real friendship. Everyone on campus noticed. The law students started calling me the only girl Weston voluntarily spends time with. Which, according to his friends, was apparently a historic event. One evening during finals week, I fell asleep in the library over my economics textbook. When I woke up, there was a blanket draped over my shoulders. A hot chocolate sat beside my laptop. And neat handwriting covered the pages I'd been struggling with. Weston had finished organizing all my notes. I found him a few tables away reading a casebook. You did this. Without looking up, he simply answered, you were drooling on chapter 6. I was not. You absolutely were. Thanks. He smiled without lifting his eyes from the page. You're welcome. After finals, our grades were released. I passed every class. For the first time since starting college, I qualified to keep my scholarship. I was so excited that I sprinted across campus looking for Weston. I found him outside the law building. I did it. He looked up. I passed everything. His serious face immediately softened. I knew you would. Without thinking, I threw my arms around him. The second I realized what I'd done, I tried to back away. I'm sore. His arms wrapped gently around my waist. He hugged me back. Congratulations, he whispered. Unfortunately, someone took a picture. By dinner time, the photo had spread across every campus group chat. The golden boy finally falls? Law school prince seen hugging mystery girl. His phone exploded. Mine wasn't much better. Even my roommate screamed when she saw me. You hugged him. It was an accident. You held him for 10 seconds. I did not count. That weekend, Weston invited me to his grandmother's birthday party. I can't. You can. Your family thinks I'm a scammer. My grandmother insists on meeting you. I'll die. Probably not. You sound uncertain. His grandmother answered the door herself. The tiny silver-haired woman looked me up and down, then suddenly grabbed both my hands. So, you're the clever little girl who sold my grandson an $800 bracelet. I wanted to disappear. Instead, she burst into laughter. I like you already. By the end of dinner, she had fed me 3 slices of cake, packed leftovers for me to take home, and loudly announced, if Weston doesn't marry this girl, he's an idiot. Weston nearly choked on his tea. Grandma. What? We're just friends. She looked between us. Not for long. Summer arrived. Weston got an internship at a prestigious law firm. I found a paid position tutoring freshmen. Life finally stopped feeling so difficult. One evening, as we walked across campus, Weston suddenly stopped beneath the same maple tree where we'd first become friends. Emily. I have something to return. He reached into his pocket. My eyes widened. It was the cheap little beaded bracelet. The $2 one? I kept it. Why? He looked down at it before smiling. At first, it reminded me not to judge people too quickly. And now, he stepped a little closer. Now it reminds me of the luckiest scam I've ever fallen for. My heart pounded. He gently placed the bracelet back into my hand. This time, I'd like to buy it honestly. I laughed through nervous tears. How much? He smiled. Not $800. Then what? He took a slow breath. One real confession.
I stared at him.
No fake gurus. No fake prices. No excuses. Just tell me honestly. He looked into my eyes. Emily, I've fallen in love with you. Will you be my girlfriend? Tears blurred my vision. I laughed as I cried. You know, I really did only approach you because I needed money. I know, but somewhere along the way, I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist. I forgot I was pretending. His smile was brighter than I'd ever seen. So, is that a yes? I stood on my tiptoes and kissed him.
It was soft, brief, perfect.
When we pulled apart, I grinned. You'll have to reject my confession first. He laughed. I refuse. I don't reimburse genuine confessions. And besides, he intertwined our fingers. I've been waiting for this one since the day you accidentally called me the light of your bank account. I groaned. I'm never living that down, am I? Never. Hand in hand, we walked across campus together. The former scammer and the law school's golden boy, both secretly grateful that a $2 bracelet had led them to the greatest